Hi, I'm LifeCoachLANDRY, and the topic is 7 signs that you've outgrown someone. I just got done doing a live YouTube session with my subscribers, and the number one question in that event was, when someone comes back into your life, how do you know if you're still good for each other, bad for each other, or it just feels good temporarily? I got asked that a lot in that segment, so I want to go over 7 signs that tell you things have changed, and it may not seem apparent at first, but it will show over time, okay? So if you're not sure whether you've outgrown someone in your life, I'm going to give you 7 signs that gear has changed about that person, okay? And this typically applies to people who knew someone for 3 to 7 years or more, because you have a lot of history there. You have a lot of things that happened with each other, good and bad, in your life and whatnot. Often what happens is you end up talking about everything you were going to do with each other again, about everything you promised each other when you were together. And usually it's one person wanting the other back, or even in friendships this happens. And what you'll see is that they'll come back and they'll promise you that everything will be different, which isn't true, but that's what they do, okay? So number one is the conversation feels forced between the two of you. While conversation used to be easygoing and fluid, it now feels awkward. And that doesn't mean that you don't have conversation with him that isn't fluid. It means that it just seems like while you're having that conversation, your mind is elsewhere sometimes and thinking about things, right? I have someone who wrote me an email here, and she's from Dallas, Texas, and asks, "Hey, Coach, I've been watching your video and I had a quick question for you. I had someone recently come back in my life. I watched you talk about a couple of other people who wrote you about former exes who have re-entered their life. Mine is about an ex that came back recently, and everything that we used to talk about, he's shown that he has changed. And since I'm single, I'm wondering if I should take somebody up on that. I'm afraid of the warning signs that you've talked about in some of your videos and whether they apply to me." And this is perfect for someone like that to listen to this, okay? Because number 2 is you don't feel emotionally or intellectually challenged, okay? And in here she says, "When I was with him, I always felt like I needed something more. And as we dated, I felt like, not to be rude, but I was a little above him in intelligence and in looks and what I could attain." Right there, you're telling me right there is that you are not stimulated intellectually. Women are in love with men that are smarter than them, not more aggressive than them, not men who push them and kind of try to corner them into situations and ways to think about things. Women are attracted to men that are just straight up smarter, and they put things to them in a way that they can't deny, right? And it looks like what you're talking about here. And you'll have a feeling that conversations are monotonous. They lack a lot of depth and meaning. And what you'll notice about these people is that you're doing more activities with them than you are intellectual conversation with them. And the thing to remember about number 2, like I said, is that when you're doing activities with someone, you're not actually getting to the core of what's going to bring you back together. And there's a reason for that, because there isn't a lot there because you've outgrown them, okay? And what you need to remember is the most important thing that you can have with somebody is sitting on the couch or sitting on the porch, having coffee and discussing life and being understanding towards both of each other's views. Not the other person cutting you off or telling you that you're wrong, but that they're open to listening to you because you're a casual, easygoing kind of couple that doesn't require, going to a carnival, going to an event, going to the movie theater, going fishing, barbecuing together. You don't need all those things. Basic conversation is a quintessential factor because of the intellect level that you would be attracted to, okay? Number 3 would be you make excuses or feel uncomfortable when they try to make plans with you. You feel apathy towards hanging out with them or activities because they used to be enjoyable but now are a little bit boring. And not boring as far as the activity itself, boring as far as the mental stimulation that you're no longer feeling or didn't ever feel, and now you don't feel that, okay? Now, what you have to remember is these people, if they're coming back in your life, are putting their best foot forward. That can only be maintained for so long, okay? Eventually, I always talk about, as you date and you go back to your past a lot, and this is typical. Everybody's done it. Everybody's been guilty of it. Some people learn faster than others about it. is that it always looks good. You start to remember the things through rose-colored glasses, meaning you forget a lot of the bad, you remember a lot of the good, and it takes 6, sometimes 7, 8 months for everything bad that you remember to resurface. But people who really have good intuition or really in touch with themselves see these signs in the first couple of weeks of seeing that person again, okay? Number 4, you restrain yourself from sharing personal and professional accomplishments. You feel guilty about sharing good news about your job because you feel they won't relate or understand. And you don't feel good about telling them about somebody new you met in your life because they will feel threatened and start to put them down. Okay, so people who are from your past are very, they get very threatened by anything new that you talk about in your life. Any new guy, any new woman makes them feel like that's a threat to what they're trying to achieve with you. Okay? Now, I'm talking about new people. Anybody's going to be threatened by someone from your past. But if it's a new person you met, let's say you're at a job and you're working with a partner, or you're working with, let's say you're a female and you got a really good male colleague and he's helping you out with stuff, and the male at home that's a threat. You know why that's a threat? Intellectual stimulation. Men who don't feel that they have a strong intellect connection with you are threatened by men who have intellect. And work, and men that you talk to about everything openly and whatnot, they know that it's intellectually a threat to them. Okay. Number 5, you feel bored when you spend time with them. You find yourself thinking of fun things you might want to do and are immediately overwhelmed by the feeling of sadness because you know they won't share your excitement. Now, this one's it sounds simple, but it's not. So what it means is, it's talking about, let's say you're going to go to a carnival together. Let's say you're going to go to NASCAR. Let's say you're going to go to a football game. That's activity dating. That's always going to be stimulating for the first hour. But once you start thinking about it long term, you're like, I don't see my future with them. You notice you kind of get a little taken back. You start thinking about somebody else doing those things with them instead of the person you're with right now. Anytime you're thinking of somebody else when you're with somebody else is never a good sign. Right? Now, it doesn't mean we don't all have little mental fallbacks where we think about our past a little bit. That's normal. That's typical. What's not typical is when you feel like you're having out of fear or insecurity or just kind of a lack of, I wonder what they're up to. But if fear and insecurity are driving your reason to be with somebody, or someone is manipulating you back into them. And what is manipulation? If you watch my other videos, manipulation is when people constantly barrage you. Constantly. For, let's say you haven't talked to them, and for a pure month, they just keep sending you things. They're trying to get you into a place where you can't think past what they're saying. And that's manipulation, okay? Number 6, you feel you're on different pages. You find it difficult to relate and connect with what each other is doing because you have different priorities and values that don't align anymore. This means you've outgrown them from a what does my future look like standpoint. Okay? What it means is that you're now in a position where you are growing mentally and spiritually and physically. You're working out more. You're doing things for yourself that you didn't do with them because they don't do those things for themselves. Okay, they've accepted life for the way it is, and this is the way it's always going to be. And what you'll notice is their fear. They'll try to get you to commit. They'll ask you for commitments from you. They'll say, "Hey, so when are you moving in? So, hey, why don't we just get together and run off into the sunset and get married?" If it's a friend, they'll say, "Why don't we hang out every day with each other?" If it's a friend who you miss or something, they're going to say, "Why don't you just be my friend all the time? How come you don't come over more often?" You'll notice they start feeling threatened by the lack of time and commitment from you. That's manipulation. They're trying to corner you into a decision. Okay, we all know that in our life, we got to make decisions at some point. But if you have to encourage someone into that decision, that's a bad sign. That means you've either outgrown them or they've outgrown you, or whoever's doing the asking. What it means is that you're just not in a place anymore where you're constantly thinking about wanting to lock down with them, and it makes you fearful when the idea of committing to them ultimately. If anybody tries to get you to commit and you go into a fear state, not about you and them fighting, but a fear state of you don't see your future with them, it's already over. Y'all just haven't said it yet, okay? And it means that your past is not where you should be going. Number 7, you find yourself constantly picking fights for the smallest things. Even no matter how small it seems, something starts a fight between you two. Now, this isn't quintessential relationship stuff that starts a fight because all couples fight over relationship items. This is they do something and you just don't like it. You don't respect them. Again, an intellectual. So to the letter that I got, what it sounds like to me is you don't have intellectual stimulation, which leads to you just don't respect him as a man anymore, which means you've outgrown him. Maybe when you were with him, before you saw everything he's about, you had some stimulation there, okay? And these are all things for everybody to think about and kind of know. But I want to say making yourself aware of these changes in our personal relationships, it's not an easy task. It takes time. And that's why sometimes when an ex comes back in your life, it takes you time to fill it out with them and then go, you know what? It'd be easier for me just to do it and be with you, and it would solve me being single and living in fear and insecurity and whatnot, but something doesn't feel right. I always say if it's a friend or an ex from your past, if you have even 1 to 3% doubt in you, you need to walk away. It means it's just not going to work, okay? So sometimes it can be incredibly painful, and we might wish that things would go back to the way they were before. We wish we could sometimes put ourselves back into a place where it felt like it used to. Okay, remember this applies to 3 to 7 year and beyond relationships that this happens. Okay, anybody that you dated or were friends with under 3 years and it fell apart can always be repaired if 2 people are willing to do it. But those long-term ones had a long history of damage, and that's why this particular applies to that, right? Because in those things that we did, a lot of damage and scarring has happened. And there's been a lot of things going on. If they were a best friend for a long time, but y'all were, hating on each other for 2 or 3 years during that friendship and beyond, if you were living with somebody and it always felt like it was on eggshells, like you were going to end up moving out. If you were engaged to somebody for a long time, of course, all they want you to do is put it behind you. Put it behind you. Of course, it's easy to tell people, forget all the mistakes that we ever made and ignore all the scars that are all over you from us. But let's face it, that doesn't happen. We can forgive as humans, but we don't forget. Okay? When people cause us pain, we never forget that. Okay? And, like I said, if it's a long-term relationship that you were in, I would say if you were cheated on, if you lived with somebody, if you were engaged, if you were best friends for a long time, any of these things can apply to you in that, okay? Intellectual is and to the letter, I'll say again, if you're not intellectually stimulated, it will never work. You will never respect a man that doesn't make you laugh and intellectually stimulate you. That's just a fact, proven fact. All studies with women show that when women no longer feel like a man keeps them on their toes from a brain standpoint, they don't see offspring with them. And they start to doubt them. And then they doubt their ability to take care of them when they need to be taken care of, okay? So, however, it's important to realize that these changes and growth are inevitable. And they're the first step towards understanding that you're in a new stage of your life. Even if bad things are going on and they come about and they look like an easy option, you've probably still outgrown them. But now you have a deeper understanding of your life, right? So undoubtedly the impact and motivations, and you shouldn't apologize for this, okay? If you've outgrown someone, no matter how much they harass you that you need to be with them, it's just the fact that you've outgrown them, okay? And these, like I said, these are applicable to a variety of romantic, friendship, work, family. If you've perceived any of these signs in your current relationship, if you have 4 or more of these, okay, it doesn't mean you have to have everyone, but if you have 4, at least 3 to 4, it's important that you open up space and you close out that friendship, that ex relationship, that argument that you have with that family member. Just close it out and move forward with your life, okay? And sometimes what happens is we meet somebody special, our past shows up, we get confused about the new special person, and that's usually because the person is threatened by them and trying to confuse you, or a new friend pops up in your life and the old friend is trying to make them sound bad for you because they think they know you better. The fact is that only you know yourself, okay? And at the end of the day, no one knows you better than you know yourself. So don't ever let someone convince you that you belong with them. You know instinctually through your intuition whether that friendship, family member, work relationship, or that ex is right for you. And in the end, 97% of relationships that were 4 or more years longer, maybe 5 years, that you live with somebody, those all fell when you go back because everything eventually resurfaces and you have to be careful about that. And most people are in denial because rose-colored glasses. Okay, so I hope this information was helpful to you. I'm glad that in my private session with my subscribers that we talked about this, but I wanted to give you guys a quick 7-step ability to know about everything that's going on that you may not be recognizing. Okay. So if you want to contact me, you can contact me at the link below. If you want to donate to support my work, you can click on the PayPal link below. And if you want to hear something specific like this writer gave to me, or people talk to you can write me and my team will decipher. They go through emails every day, and if they see a topic they think is really good to cover or that's popping up a lot from people who watch my videos, I will do it for you. Okay, so I look forward to talking to you guys. Leave your comments below on if these things are happening to you, and I will talk to you soon.